Welcome back to Strength, Strategy, and Mindset. This is day number 80, and this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for Endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health in your life, avoid complications, go to the next level. We're creating the life we've always wanted, and we are moving to the next level. Hey, we are back, and I am spending some time today and over the course of the next couple of days talking about the other component of our MOVE campaign. Remember, metabolic optimization via exercise. We've spent 79 days now, mostly talking about strength, strategy, and mindset, and walking through the space of being healthy as we lifted weights, as we did squats, as we did curls and dumbbell presses. And a part of strength, strategy, and mindset has to do also with the fact that we are continuing down the path of our MOVE campaign. That's metabolic optimization via exercise. And so today I'm out and about, and we are going to do some walking. Remember, as part of our Limitless Living Health Action Plan, the first tier of our plan has to do with walking and fasting. And I wanted to make sure that we did not forget or neglect the fact that this is an integral part of what we do. So even as we are working on strengthening our muscles, as we're working on strengthening our legs and coming up with a strategy to continue that process, this is a very important component of that as well. And so we're going to walk through and do a little bit more talking. And I trust that you have been continuing to be in the mindset and in the mind frame of consistency, and that you are continuing to work through your routine. You know, that 5 minutes routine that you have. And I guess one of the first things to talk about as we get into our discussion today and for the rest of this week is what's been going on over the last couple of weeks. You know, we've been traveling, we've been off of our schedule, we've been out of our routine. And over the last several days, you know, you saw me at the hotel, you saw me going through our 5-minute routine, and then you saw me back home. And we've been off a little bit for the last couple of days. And sometimes illness happens, family things come up, and I have been working through that space and could have grabbed my camera and done a short video during that time, but you didn't see that. And so here we are now coming back and saying, okay, let's get back into the recorded part. Now, one of the important things for me and for you as well is always going to be, how do you show up when you are in the middle of working through the things that happen in life? Now, remember, several episodes ago, I talked about the fact that one of the phrases that we throw around, that I use also, but it's the phrase of when life happens, right? Like life is happening. And we sometimes use that phrase to mean that the things that are happening in life are abnormal from what we normally see, right? So we're on a routine, and, you know, for example, you're doing strength, strategy, and mindset, and you're out and you're doing lifting and you are going through the process, and something happens that throws you off of your routine, and we call that life happened. Well, that is true, and I understand the reason for using that phrase, but you know, the thing that happened is life. That's what life is all about. That the things that happen are the things that are part of our life. And so what I would prefer to say is that something interrupts my routine, right? So I'm on a routine, I'm going through my schedule, and something interrupts that. But the thing that happened that interrupted it is a part of life. And so I guess the question is, how do we manage that? How do we go about making sure that that is a consistent part of what we do and we build that into our routine? And one of the things that, if you've been following us on our channel and you've been on our show, this whole idea of the accelerator that we've been talking about. And the accelerator is a bucket that is designed to take all the things that we're learning, right? The health action plan, talking about consistency, our 100-day walk to consistency, talking about strength, strategy, and mindset, talking about the limitless living health action plan. The accelerator is designed to be a bucket, if you will. It is the engine that's designed to drive all that we do. How do we remain consistent? How do we go about making that our default? It's kind of like when we get a new computer. When you get a new computer, there are some default things that are already installed on it, and it runs. And when you upgrade into a new operating system, or you get some new software, that new software does some things that are default. And so our goal is to install within ourselves this concept of limitless living, right? Limitless living, so that it is our default operating system. So that when there are things that interrupt, there are schedule changes, there are illnesses in the family, there are whatever comes up, which is a part of life, that it does not shut the system down. And as I go through my life, and as I talk to countless numbers of patients and clients, and as now I'm talking to people about limitless living as we move around in different spaces, the thing that causes the most difficulty is not the fact that people don't necessarily know how to and what to do. The thing that causes difficulty is that their default is not ingrained. Their default is not installed. Their default is just the things that they want to do. Let me say it this way. The things that they want to do, the behaviors that are aligned, that should be aligned with where they say they want to go, those are not default behaviors. And they're not default behaviors because the behaviors occur occasionally, they occur randomly, and there's no system in place to make those things just the normal process. Think about this. When you have a problem to solve, the way you solve your problem is the way you normally solve problems. What I mean by that is when you have a problem that comes up, the way you've always solved problems is the way you're going to solve that one. The way you think about problems is the way you're going to think about that one. And so as we work through our lives to improve our thought process, to get better at something, it is the constant and continual implementation of that thing that causes it now to be the thing that we do. Think about your job. When you go to a new job and they're teaching you a new procedure, a new behavior, a new skill, that skill is not normal to you, right? Because you've been used to doing something a different way, or maybe this is even a new situation in which you find yourself. And so that is not your default. And in order for that to now to become your default, you have to do it over and over and over and over and over. And after a while, you become competent in it if you are consistent. But if that is something that you do occasionally, randomly here, randomly there, then when you're faced with that situation, then you fall actually back into what you normally do, and the new skill is not is not where you go. And so our goal is to say, how do we now install as our default behavior, as our default thought, as our default ways of doing things, this new person or this new version of us that is the operating system that we now want to run on. And so going back to our process that we've been going through, when I traveled, one of the things that came up was the fact that I was at the hotel, that we were in the midst of, an amazing conference, that we were there seeing people. And I think I told you the story about one night getting back to the hotel room and thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I've just got a few minutes and it's going to be the end of the day. And so I got my 5-minute routine, went downstairs, and a couple of times, we videotaped some of that, but some of it we did, right? So there was no recording of it, but it was my way of saying to myself that no, this is not a an option, right? This is who I am. This is how I may not be able to do a 30-minute. I may not be able to do a 45-minute, but I'm putting some time in so that this is now a consistent thing. I was talking to a patient a couple of weeks ago, and they were in the office, and we were talking about this concept of behavior and consistency. And the patient's spouse was with them, and she said, when I travel, everybody gets on me because even when we're out, I go and I exercise. And people say to me, well, you're on vacation. You don't have to do that. And I tell them, I do have to do it because it is what I do. It's not an option for me not to do it. Now, I can choose not to do it for a particular reason, but I'm not just not doing it because I'm on vacation. Because a vacation is still a part of my life. And a part of my life, it doesn't change who I am at my core. And I think that's the message. That's the message that I want to get. That you're at your core, you are someone who moves. At your core, you're someone who walks. At your core, you're someone who does strength training. At your core, you are someone who is interested in making sure that metabolically you are active. And so the idea of metabolic optimization via exercise, it is a default procedure. It's a default function. It's a default in who we are and default in our behavior. So we don't have to think about it anymore. So when I'm at the hotel, right, and the time is going away, I didn't have to go through a whole lot of processing and a whole lot of difficulty in the thought. The process that I had to think about was, okay, how do I get this on video? Because I was going to do it, but how do I record that, right? And of course, setting up and all that takes time. And so that usually is the part of the process that is the challenge. How do I get this recorded so that you guys get to see me doing those things in the space, so that you see that this is a consistent process. That is something we're working on, how to get that done faster. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. So for those of you who are out there who are content creators, who have some ideas, that would be a good thing to drop me a message about. How do we do this more quickly, so that we get that on tape. Anyway, so back to the conversation. So it's no longer difficult thought process. It's not something that we've got to decide, because guess what? We've already decided. It is what we do. It is how we move. It is the thing that's in us. And if that's going to happen, it has to be a constant, consistent thing that you do. Now, not to say that there aren't times when you become ill and for some reason you can't do what you need to do, or situation is of such that you may not be able to, you may have to take a day off. But the goal is so that it's not a consistent day after day after day, week after week, so that it now, when you get back to it, it now becomes something that is abnormal, okay? One of the most challenging things, and let's kind of walk through some of this, one of the most challenging things is for people who become ill, right? So because when you become ill, many times, if depending on the illness, you're off of your routine. You're maybe in bed, or you're in a situation where you may not be able to do the exercises that we do. But what I tell people is, depending on where you are, right, guess what? You can move a finger. Remember, metabolic optimization via exercise, right? Moving a finger. You can do some isometric exercises. And I'm just throwing out some thoughts here. But the goal is not that, oh my God, I've got to get up and I've got to go through the entire routine. The goal is that you are moving as much as you can during the time that your body, your life, your circumstance allows you. That's a great concept right there. The idea of moving as much as you can. Right? So metabolic optimization via exercise does not say that you've got to spend 2 hours in the gym. Now, if you're spending 2 quality hours in the gym, and that is something that allows you to achieve some of the things that you want, then that's great. But if you've set a target of saying, well, I'm going to spend 2 hours in the gym every single day, and one day, for some whatever reason, you end up spending an hour at the gym, that is not a failure. That is circumstance allowing you or changing what you have to do. You know, if you know, you go to the gym and you're there for an hour and something happens and they're like, hey, we got to get out of here, you know, the lights are out, the power's gone, whatever it is, and you end up at an hour, guess what? It is what you got. It is what you have. And so I want to make sure that that concept of as much as you can is very good. That also applies to as much as you can, being that there's something that happens to you physically where you can't do all of the things that you normally do. You can't do the barbells and the dumbbells and the kettlebells, and you can't do the squats. But what can you do? What can you do? There are several people who I know who may have had an injury. And so, you know, they may have rotator cuff surgery, they may have had some other thing go on, and they sometimes become distressed because they can't lift. Well, guess what? Metabolic optimization via exercise says that one of the components, one of the arms of the MOVE campaign is walking. And so when you can't do something with your upper body, you can get out and you can walk. If you can't walk, you can do leg lifts, those knee extensions that we do. If you can't do that, you can do leg swings. If you can't do that, you can do arm twists. Notice what we're doing is we are being consistent. We're not being constant. And we're not being the same. Sometimes we equate those, and you heard me several episodes ago talk about the difference between consistency and sameness. Consistency and sameness are not the same. Same means it is the exact way of doing something. Consistency just means I'm showing up. I'm showing up. When I get there, how I do it, what I do may be different, but I am in that space. And so showing up, for example, today, as we're talking about walking, is consistent. It is not same. It is different than what we've been doing in terms of our strength, strategy, and mindset, but it is consistent because, as I mentioned before, that we would spend some time during this series making sure that we didn't forget about walking. And here we are. This is a perfect opportunity for us to do that. I'm out, you're probably going to hear there's a guy out here doing blowing some leaves and doing some yard work. That's one of the things I love about the walking, is that it helps me also connect with people that are around me. And so when I walk around the neighborhood, I get to see who's out, maybe sometimes connect with neighbors who often, they're at work, I'm at work, or we come home late at night. So this is a perfect opportunity to work on one of those other domains of health, right? That social, relational component. So, and the other thing is, when I'm out walking, I have the opportunity to talk to some neighbors and people who see me, because we've had some changes in my appearance. If you have been kind of following us, you've heard about the weight that I've lost. And so I'll have people randomly stop me and say, "Hey, man, I see you out walking. I see your videos. Tell me, what are you doing? Tell me a little bit about that." And that's a great opportunity for me to kind of help pour back into the community, pour back into them, so that I'm providing some community benefit, which is another part of limitless living, because it says that I'm not doing this by myself. I am helping to improve my community and helping my community to grow and my community get better. And so, so walking. So this is a great opportunity for consistency, even though it's not the same. And that is a great time, or great lesson for us to learn. So when you are living life, and when life is continuing, so not life happening, right? So life is continuing. How do we make sure that our default is not to stop? How do we make sure that our default is not to give up? How do we make sure that our default is not to allow those interruptions to derail us? And this is the whole idea of the accelerator that we've been talking about on our show and introduced a couple of weeks ago, because this accelerator is the engine that drives what we do. Remember, our concept of limitless living says that we're not allowing anything to prevent us from doing what we need to do. We're showing up with our best selves, our best health, and our best plans. And all of that takes structure, it takes support, it takes us changing some thoughts and the way we think of things sometimes, so that we are putting ourselves in the best position of being successful. And the accelerator is with the intention of taking all the things that we're learning and installing them into an operating system that now becomes the structure and becomes the thing that helps drive us. So the Limitless Living Health Action Plan, the heat model, those things that talk about how we, what are the triggers that push us, the COPE model, how do we go about dealing with the things that come up, the situations that come up in our lives? Do we have a mechanism in place? I asked someone just that this week. And you'll be surprised when I talk to people about, well, there's this stressful thing going on, this stressful situation, something that's going on in the family, something going on with your health. And I'll say to them, well, What do you have in place to manage that? And they say, well, I'll just have to deal with it. And I want you to think about yourself, right? And I'm putting me in there as well. How often do we have things that come up and we say to ourselves, well, I just have to deal with it? Well, having to deal with it is not really a plan, is it? It's an intention. It is a desire. It is maybe ultimately the goal, but that's not a plan. It's kind of like me saying, well, you know, we are going to move to a not different house, right? So we need to move because family is growing, and we go out and we look at a piece of land, and my wife says to me, well, okay, I like this spot. I like this spot. And now she said, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, I guess we'll just have to build a house. Now, she probably will say to me, okay, so what is the plan? Right? Because it's a good dream, it's a good desire, it's a good want, but what's the plan? Right? We got to go find a contractor. We got to go, well, first of all, let's go find a builder. Right? And start looking, what kind of house do we want? What are the plans? Start walking through and say, what are the things we're going to do? What are we going to do on this piece of land? Right? Are there other things that we need to figure out? Right? Is it zoned for the house? Or is it an industrial place? Right? So assuming that you're in a community and it's zoned for houses and so forth, that goes out of the window. But so now we find a builder, and the builder says, okay, what do you want? They say, we want a house. Okay, well, what kind of house? Is it a ranch? Is it a two-story? Is it we're going to have a slab? We're going to have a crawl space? Right? What features do you want? Do you want a 3-bedroom? You want a 2-bedroom? You want 1 bath? And so there has to be a plan. And so just dealing with it is not a plan. And so the health action plan is a plan. Move, metabolic optimization via exercise, is a plan. The accelerator now takes all of those and puts them in a structure, an engine that helps to drive that process. And so in your life, often there are things that you want to do that you're not successful with, not because you don't have a desire. And let me make sure you understand that. Don't let anybody convince you that the reason that you are in the situation you're in is because you don't have drive, that you don't have motivation, that you don't have vision. That is not the case. I'm pausing there because I want you to get this. Don't ever let anybody convince you of those things, because life, and people around us will try to convince us that the reason we're not successful is because we're lazy. And I would propose to you that the reason that you're not successful in many of the places that you want to be is not because you're lazy, not because you don't have drive, not because you don't have vision, not even because you don't have the intelligence and the know-how, is because you don't have structure. You don't have a plan. And the moment that you put your dreams, your desires, your motivation, your decisions into a plan, into some structure, success happens, and you are like, wow. It's like it happened overnight. Well, it didn't happen overnight. All you did was took what you have. That's why we say show up with your best self, your best life, best self, best health, and best plans. All you did was took what you had and you put it into a structure that supports getting you to a destination. And that concept right there, think about wanting to go on a trip. You got everything. You've got the money, you've got the suitcases with the clothes, you've got everything possibly that you need, but you don't have a vehicle. You can want to go. You may even start walking to the destination, but guess what? You are not getting there quickly and perhaps not even successfully if you do get there. So you have to have a structure. You have to have the vehicle that takes you in that direction. And installing this new operating system within you, installing the structure within you, gives you the ability to do that, gives you the ability to be successful, and gives you the ability to not continually spin your wheels and continually become discouraged because you've been putting the time in, you've been doing what you've told, you've been getting the degrees, you've been getting the certification, you've been learning the process, but because you don't have a structure, you don't have something that takes the motivation out of the equation. Because remember, motivation will wane. Motivation will wane, but structure and consistency is what drives us. And that's one of the ideas I want to make sure that you get as we are walking through strength, strategy, and mindset. And this week, we're going to spend our time here walking, having some discussions. And as we talk through this, I want you to know that your consistency, your showing up, is the first key in part of your superpowers. You saying that I am going to make the decision to do what I need to do to be successful, and I'm putting structure in place. Anyway, thank you for joining me for today. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's what Limitless Living says, that we're not allowing anything to prevent us from doing what we need to do. We're showing up with our best self, our best health, and our best plans for our life. And we're pushing through those borders, we're pushing through those boundaries, we're pushing through those obstacles. And we are going to be consistent, and we're going to be successful. So thank you for being here. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Woode with an E. The E stands for Endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life. Avoid complications, go to the next level. We're creating the life we've always wanted, and we are going to the next level. So now go live a limitless life, and we'll see you tomorrow on day number 81 for strength, strategy, and mindset. See you later.